quarterback first, but he has a unique skill set that he's a great runner. Obviously, he throws well on the run. He's got a unique set of skills that we're going to take a look at as we keep developing this this offseason and this advancement, so to speak, as we get ready for training camp.
Heard nothing but great things about Jalen and the kid he is and the player that he is, and got a chance to talk to him just briefly. So excited to add him to the fold and create a really good, healthy, competitive, challenging environment for all of us, and excited to add him to the fold.
Like his entire team, the lead Eagle never took flight in 2020. Behind an offensive line ravaged by injuries, Wentz, by any metric, was among the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. It took just 2 games for Seth Joyner to identify that something was seriously wrong.
They have a problem at quarterback, and I think that, for the longest we have tried to figure out a way to give Carson Wentz the benefit of the doubt. After watching this game and watching the way that he plays the game, I'm convinced that they have a quarterback problem right now that they just signed to a major contract deal last year.
The Eagles sputtered to a 3-8-1 record at the three-quarter pole. Then in Week 13 at Green Bay, during the third quarter, Peterson made the move many had spent weeks clamoring for. He moved Jalen Hurts to the huddle and Wentz to the bench.
It just felt like where we were as an offense, we needed a spark. We needed something to kind of go our way, and so I decided to put Jalen in the game.
I know what I'm capable of. I know I can play better. I never have doubted myself or lost my confidence in my abilities, but like I said, a lot of these things are outside of my control.
Carson Wentz never took another snap as an Eagle and left a legacy loaded with questions. What if he never tore his ACL in 2017? What if Nick Foles failed to win the Super Bowl? What if the Eagles decided to draft someone other than Jalen Hurts? Those are questions that can be debated forever. What is certain is the former number 2 overall pick, who signaled an era of new hope in Philadelphia, never attained the level of individual success predicted for him. Success that seemed like a lock until 2017 in that third quarter at LA. Carson Wentz, we hardly knew ye. 5 seasons here in Philadelphia, the second overall pick in the 2016 draft, traded to the Indianapolis Colts. Joining me now to discuss this, to analyze this, is former Eagles tackle and our analyst on NBC Sports Philadelphia on pregame and postgame live, Barrett Brooks, and my friend and colleague from NBC Sports Philadelphia and NBC 10, John Clark. Barrett, start with you. At what point did the straw break the camel's back? Was it December 6th when Carson Wentz was benched for the following weeks, not just week, but weeks, after a 79-yard performance at Green Bay, 6 of 15 for 79 yards on December 6th, and that's the last we saw him play for the Philadelphia Eagles. But what do you think, Double B?
To be honest, you can't blame really Doug Peterson. He was forced to really bench Carson because Carson at that point had played so bad that you couldn't do anything but that. And, I went through it a lot, as far as in my head with, the fact that we benched him and, being an NFL player, understanding you are what your last snap is. Well, his last snap wasn't pretty good. So, I know during this time period, he had just signed a new deal and he played his way out of that deal. So, I feel bad for Carson in the aspect that, he just went through all that, but also look at this organization and it really put this organization in shambles. They're behind it right now. They're up against it right now because of this whole decision of benching Carson Wentz and playing the rookie. And the rookie played just well enough that they couldn't put Carson Wentz back on the field. So there's a lot of blame to be pushed around, but at this point, it's really going to be tough for this Eagles organization as a whole to push forward from this point on.
John Clark, you have many, many sources far and wide across the landscape of the NFL. What have you learned about why this went down the way it did, whether or not Carson Wentz wanted out, whether or not the Eagles wanted him out, and at what point that might have occurred?
Well, from talking to a lot of people, it became apparent that Carson Wentz just wanted a fresh start. He wanted to go somewhere else, that he felt there were so many factors coming against him, whether it's getting injured all the times that he did, Nick Foles winning a Super Bowl, a statue at the link of Nick Foles and Doug Peterson, a lot of poor things that happened this year with the offensive line and all kinds of factors, but also maybe the drafting of Jalen Hurts. So a lot of things, just the world is caving in on you, and that Carson would rather go somewhere else. So what did the Eagles do? Well, they did try to make an effort to try to smooth things over. Hey, we'd love you to stay. But in the end, Carson did want a fresh start. And so the Eagles decided that, okay, it's best that we part ways and that we get value and compensation. And by the way, I'm told there wasn't any drama. It was civil. And the Eagles look at this as a sad situation. It's a very disappointing day. But when they went to make a deal, it's apparent to me that really, in the end, the Colts were the one team that were sincere and serious about trading for Carson Wentz. So the Eagles were trying to get the best offer that they could. And really, in the end, as I said, because the Bears dropped out of this maybe a week ago, the Colts were the one team that was offering something for Carson Wentz. And the Eagles, I'm told that Carson did not dictate where he wanted to go. Of course, he'd probably want to be with the Colts. It's a much better situation. But they were trying to get the best compensation they could, and they feel they were able to get the best compensation that they could in this deal. But from talking to people at the NovaCare complex, it's a sad day, it's a bad day, it's a tough situation, and they like Carson. They think he's a great guy, and they had so much expectation trading up for him and then giving him the contract that they did. So this is a sad day, but I think this works out best for both sides because it looks like Carson Wentz was not going to survive Philadelphia and just didn't want to play here anymore through all the situations that he had been through.
And just to be clear, John Clark, and I know, Barrett, I hear you don't like what you're hearing, but John is reporting that Carson Wentz, we had heard this at the time, but it kind of got quiet after that. Carson Wentz drove this trade. He thought his position here in Philadelphia was untenable, and he would be unable to compete as starting quarterback any longer. He wanted out of Philadelphia, way more, at least it appears, than the Eagles wanted him out. So he drove this trade. John and Barrett, you've been here for a long period of time. We watched Donovan McNabb get benched for the second half at Baltimore for one game, really one half of football. John, Barrett, what did the Eagles think was going to happen when you bench a quarterback for the remaining 4 games of the season? John?
Well, I agree. I think that was the breaking point, and it would have been fascinating to see if Doug Peterson had put Carson Wentz back in for the next game. Now, obviously, I think it was the right decision to go with Jalen Hurts because I think Carson's confidence was just shot and all the things that were happening. I just think he obviously was not the best option at this point, and Doug was trying to win football games. So maybe that really was and truly the breaking point. And we've heard various reports that the communication broke down with Doug and Carson after that. And so there were obviously a lot of issues. But I did hear Barrett and his sound effect. And look, I kind of agree. I like Carson, and I think he's got a lot of talent. And I really, truly wonder what happened this past year. And number one thing I would have loved to have heard was, okay, I am going to work on some things. There's a lot of things that went wrong, but I'm going to be better as a quarterback, and I'm going to be a better leader, and I'm going to come in, and I'm going to win this job and be the quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles. That would be the number one thing that I would have liked to have seen. Obviously, Carson did not want to do that. He didn't want to compete with Jalen Hurts for the job, and he would rather be somewhere else. That's very disappointing to me. Maybe he just lost trust with the entire organization. That's disappointing. And number one thing the Eagles, I think, would have wanted is for Carson to come back and be the starting quarterback or compete for the starting job. I mean, they still believed in him, and also the financial tie-in was unbelievable, the commitment they had to him. So that really hurts all the dead money. So I think, number one, they would have loved for Carson to come back. Carson wanted to go somewhere else, and the Eagles eventually decided it's best if we part ways.
Barrett, you also have sources in the NovaCare complex. And what are you hearing about Carson Wentz and any loggerheads he may have had with Doug Peterson and not wanting to play for Doug?
Well, at the end of the day, they made a decision. They have too much capital really invested in Carson to make a decision like this. The 5 picks it took to get Carson here as an Eagle. Then we talk about the compensation that he acquired during this 5-year process of playing for the Eagles. Then to go in and invest in him over $128 million. And then after that, to play as bad as he played at the tail end of the season, throughout the entire season. I would have rather wanted, from a player standpoint and being a former player, I would have wanted him to come back and at least try to fight for the position. But to take your ball, pick up, and just go somewhere else, I wouldn't have thought that Carson Wentz would have been that type of guy. I understand that the quarterback position is totally different from all of the positions. You don't really compete at the quarterback position. But, at the end of the day, you look at it. They did everything they could to make sure Carson was in a position where he could be happy. They let Doug Peterson go. Doug lost the real quarterback battle. They released Doug. He got, cut. So now they have Carson sitting right there. Now, then they still have to give Carson away. They even brought in a coaching staff and from a former guy that he loves to see if he can help him out. And he still chose to leave.
Well, but Barrett, let me stop you. Let me stop you real quick because we're talking about Carson Wentz, who is a former MVP caliber quarterback in his second season.
Right.
When you look at Joe Montana, you look at Steve Young, you look at Aaron Rodgers, you certainly look at Tom Brady. None of them were benched, I don't think ever, but they certainly weren't benched for 4 games. Can you understand why a player of that ilk in Carson Wentz would say, I'm not taking this? They don't even bench me 1 game. They bench me 4 games.
That's due to his play. I understand, he had some things against as far as the offensive line, but there were still plays to be made on that field. He didn't go out there and play to the offense the way it was supposed to be run. At the end of the day, if a guy's open, you throw it to the guy that's open. Stop playing hero ball. Carson put himself in a bad position by the way he played. They said over 15 sacks that Carson had were his sacks, in which he could have threw the ball away or he held the ball too long. You can only run an offense the way it's supposed to be run. And when you start freestyling and playing hero ball, it puts you in a bad position when you don't have to. There were times where guys were running wide open. He chose not to go to those guys. Those are the type of things that you can't really say was anybody else's fault but Carson. Then at the end of games, instead of taking responsibility and say, hey, I need to play better, it was always we need to play better. Come on, Carson. I know you're a competitor. I know you can play better. And if you'd have came back to the Eagles, I realized that you would have went in and made yourself better. And you would not have played as bad as you did this year. But at least take the reins and go out there and fight for your position. To me, that's just a cop-out. You can't pick your ball up and go and leave because they don't want to play your type of ball. You proved on the field that you weren't ready this season. You didn't play at a high level this season. It's your own daggone fault that you got benched. He waited 12, 13 games before he did it. I thought it should have happened, and it gave the young guy more of an opportunity around week 8. But he waited 13 games. 12 games. After that, you just didn't put yourself in a good position. Now, I didn't think this was going to happen. That's just too much dead money. The NFL has stated that the cap will be at $180 million this year. So you have to instantly subtract $33.5 million from that cap. That means the Eagles are working right around $140 million to sign all the players that they have. That's no working room for a team to go out there and be successful and bring guys in. In order for them to go forward, they have to subtract before they even think about bringing somebody in. So they're behind the buck right now. The Eagles lost dearly in this. The fact that they're getting a 3rd rounder for a guy that potentially could still be a franchise quarterback, this is the worst trade in history. The worst cap value in history. This is historic as far as bad trades. Right now, the Eagles are still the laughing stock of this league.
Even if they get the first rounder next year?
Well, that's what I'm saying. You can't talk to me about this being a good trade until this time next year, when they see that they have the ability to get a first-round pick. I mean, if you look at it, if he's not playing up to expectations, the Colts can actually sit him down and they just get a second-round pick just because he didn't play up to his ability. So, I mean, until I get at this point next year, I'm saying it's a bad trade, historic bad trade, and this will be a historic number that a player won't be in that locker room and they're going to take a cap hit. $33.8 million is too much for me to swallow.
John Clark, 18.6% of their cap will be spent on Carson Wentz, now of the Indianapolis Colts. So when you look at Howie Roseman, who has been the architect of these trades, Howie Roseman, who selected Carson Wentz with the second overall pick, he survives this. Apparently also reports indicate that he and Jeffrey Lurie are joined at the hip, and Jeffrey Lurie is way more involved in making these roster moves than we had perhaps previously thought. Howie survives all this and then will also select the talent going forward, whether it's in the draft, whether it's getting rid of free agents, or even guys like Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson, guys who are not free agents, who they just may let go. He lives to be GM another day, right?
Yes, he's the general manager. He's in charge, and he has final say going forward. And look, this is a mistake. This is a really unfortunate situation that this happened. And Carson, it seems, wins in this because he's going to a great situation with the Colts. Frank Reich reunited with him, great offensive line, a team that is playoff ready. And now, if he can really play well in a perfect situation for him, then maybe they could be a Super Bowl contender. So Carson wins in this, and that's what's happening in the NFL now. You're seeing all these quarterbacks, if they would rather go somewhere else, we're hearing noise from Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson officially requested a trade. The NFL is kind of becoming like the NBA. Matthew Stafford requested a trade. So you're seeing guys, if they don't like their situation, they are going to find a way out. And if you're the Eagles, I understand Barrett says this is a bad trade, but if you're the Eagles, your decision was either you trade Carson Wentz, try to get value, or you come back and you try to see if he'll have a competition with Jalen Hurts. I don't think that would have been best, and the Eagles decided that wouldn't have been best. So they went out and tried to find the best offer they could, and as I said, I think in the end, the Colts were the only serious and sincere bidder for Carson Wentz in this situation. Adam Kaplan reported that the Bears dropped out, and they may have dropped out like a week ago. So the Eagles did the best they could. It's an unfortunate situation. The organization has lost here, absolutely. And they have a dead cap number that is ridiculous, a lot of dead money. And so this year, I think, is going to be a lost year. I think you rebuild, you try to get draft picks, you trade other guys, and you rebuild this organization with young players and draft picks, because this coming year, I think, is going to be a lost year. Rebuild. Build it up again, because you have to find the quarterback. Jalen Hurts will come in probably as the starter, but the Eagles, their options are open. They could take a quarterback at 6, or they could bring in another quarterback to compete with Jalen. So the options are on the table, but you have to find a franchise quarterback and rebuild this team.
Or here's another option, John, as I flash back in time. You don't take Jalen Hurts in the second round with the 54th overall pick, knowing that you've got a guy like Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz was not Aaron Rodgers.
All right, hold on.
Go ahead.
Just give me 1 second.
Yes.
Give me 1 second, because look at it from the Eagles' perspective. You drafted Carson Wentz, you gave him the extension, and Carson Wentz was not healthy for any playoff game, and they were trying to have another quarterback like Nick Foles be there for when Carson gets injured. I don't think it was a terrible decision.
Well, it
I think it
out,
was. I think it was.
Go ahead, Barrett.
Why is that?
I think it was because you could have got him another weapon. Yeah, get him another weapon instead of getting him somebody that's competing against him. Give him a first-rate receiver as opposed to somebody we have to build into a receiver. Give him another, somebody that can come in on the defensive side of the ball to make an instant impact, that we can spend more time with the offense on the ball instead of the defense out on the field. You get him somebody that can come in and play as opposed to somebody that, you could have got somewhere else to be his backup.
I understand, but they saw the playoff game against the Seahawks where Carson only played 6 or 7 snaps. Josh McCown came in. They could have won that game, but they didn't have an adequate backup. Josh gave it all he could. So they said, we need another Nick Foles. I don't think you can say that was a mistake. And if Carson can't take the heat from Jalen Hurts, then he's not going to take the heat in pressure situations.
Right, and it remains to be seen. I have my doubts as to whether or not Carson Wentz is going to be successful in Indianapolis, but he's the Colts' problem now. We are back at 6 o'clock with Ray Dittinger, with John Clark, with Barrett Brooks as we continue our coverage of this trade. Have a great day.